time, welcome. Today we're visiting with Dr. Heather Stefanski, and we're going to share a little time, talk about her background and the program she's here, her program here at Arkansas Tech University. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I think to kind of start off, could you tell us a little bit about kind of where you're from and where you grew up?
Yeah, so I am from Florida, and I started my undergraduate program at Florida State University. I went in as a journalism major and quickly realized I did not like the stress and the fast pace.
Okay.
And ended up switching to education. And so I got my undergraduate in English education. Then I moved across the state and started teaching on a little island off the coast of Florida.
Okay.
So you're probably wondering how that ended up.
No, I'm thinking
here
how awesome that is. Yeah.
From an island, yeah. So I started teaching there and then went back, got my master's also in secondary English education, but I had an adult education emphasis. I wanted to do that because I got National Board Certified in 2003 and started mentoring other teachers and working with interns, and realized that I really liked teaching.
Sure.
So got married, had kids, and then decided to go back and get my doctorate. So I went to University of Florida, and my doctorate is in curriculum, teaching, and teacher education.
Okay.
Graduated in December of 2019 and got hired here at Tech right after COVID hit.
So we got here about the same time.
Okay.
I came in August of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been here similar time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of go back just a smidge, I guess. So you've had this experience teaching on an island, which sounds amazing. Where do you think that love of that connection to the teaching field, where did that start stewing, or where did that come from?
So I was never going to be a teacher, but my mother told me that she always knew that I was, because that would be what I would do at home, is I would have my dolls and create worksheets and have a little chalkboard and do my lesson. And I remember that, but I was never going to teach. And then I took that first intro class after realizing that journalism was not my thing, and just I fell in love with it. And I think school was always like my happy place. I was an only child, so I went to school to play, and I went to school to be with all my friends, and that feeling has never left me.
So, excuse me, it's something about, sometimes that discovery major, you take a class and you're like, this is it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though you might have had an inkling, or your mom had an inkling in the background. Okay, so get back on track a little bit. You come to Arkansas Tech about the same time, didn't realize that. What brought you to Tech?
So I wanted to be in higher ed, and I subscribed to all of those, like the Chronicle of Higher Ed, and did all the LinkedIn stuff, and the middle level position opened. And my husband and I was actually also interviewing in North Dakota.
Okay.
Because my husband is from the north, and we wanted to move further north, maybe not quite North Dakota north, but we were just kind of looking and putting feelers out. And in Florida, where I went to school, we didn't have a dedicated middle level program, and that's what I taught. I taught middle level ELA for 21 years. And so it really excited me that there was a program dedicated to that time period, that adolescence, because there's a lot to learn about that. It's very different from elementary and secondary. And then we started looking at pictures of Russellville, and we saw mountains, and we saw leaves, and that there is a little bit of snow. In Florida, we have one season pretty much. And so we thought, okay, let's give it a try. And I did the interview, and we drove up here and just fell in love. It's a small town, but there's a lot here still too.
Yeah.
And so that's how we ended up here.
Awesome. Yeah, I grew up in Texas and Oklahoma, so I had a little bit more familiarity with Arkansas, but it was kind of a similar thing as being on campus, and the campus is very beautiful, and you've got the mountains, pushing up out of the skyline a little bit and whatnot. And I tell people a lot, I really love where I live.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I may not say exactly that when it's August and it's 110, but most of the time.
Which
right?
surprised us.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it would be so hot and humid here.
Yeah, it gets after it.
Yeah.
So I guess to get back on track again, tell us a little bit more about your program. What kind of courses are in that program, and what kind of courses, I guess, do you teach, and what do students learn and do?
Okay. So when I first got here, I was just teaching in the middle level program. And then Dr. Walsh retired, and I took over as the director of the MAT program. But then Dr. Smith retired suddenly, and so then I had to choose, am I going to do the Master of Arts in Teaching, or am I going to do middle level? And middle level is my heart, so that's what I ended up doing. But I do still teach in the master's program. So in the middle level program, it's undergraduate, it leads to licensure, and it used to be where students could pick two or three subject areas. We've pared it down to one, so they get that depth and breadth of knowledge that they need in order to pass the praxis.
Sure.
So they come in, and I meet them in their intro to education class, and I'm the primary instructor in the program, and I'm with them throughout. It's cohort based, so they really get to know each other, they get to know me. It's an amazing opportunity. We do ed psych for adolescents, because like I said, adolescents are really different. We do assessment, classroom management, curriculum, all of those teachery things you would expect. But in the master's program, I also get to teach some of those same things. And our master's level students want to be teachers. They have a degree in something else. And so this is their first taste of those pedagogy classes, so I treat them very similarly. And when they finish the MAT program, then they can get a teaching license as well.
Sure. Thank you. One of the, as you're talking about, I remember you talking about some of the other stuff you're doing in your classes, and you mentioned some VR work with another professor, and I'm kind of excited to hear more about this, to be honest. So tell us a little bit more about the virtual reality stuff that you're working on.
Yeah, so I love technology. I'm definitely a tech nerd. And so Dr. Calloway, who was here, she and I wrote a grant in 2022 surrounding innovative technology. And so we were awarded about $22,000, and we were able to buy VR headsets and 360 cameras.
Okay.
And so the idea is we want our pre-service teachers to use those to better their teaching in terms of classroom management and reflection. And so we've done a couple iterations of this, but in their formal internship, one thing I was noticing is that they weren't noticing. They would be so hyper fixated on the kids in the front of the room and what they were saying. And there would be pockets of the classroom that would just get missed. And that's natural as a new teacher, because you're so worried about what's coming out of your mouth. Is it the right thing? Am I connecting? And so we wrote the grant so then we could put the 360 camera in the middle of the room and capture the entire room as the class was going on. And then later the pre-service teachers would wear the VR headsets and they would re-watch that lesson, but from a lens where they're not focusing on themselves. They can get past themselves and look at what's going on around in the classroom.
Okay.
And we see that they are noticing a lot more. My assumption at first was that they would notice the misbehavior, but what was really interesting is they're actually noticing that what they're doing is working.
Okay, yeah.
Because they can finally get past themselves. When they watch their two-dimensional video, they're so focused on what they're saying. But when they're doing the 360, they could actually see those aha moments for the kids that they missed when they were actually teaching.
Okay, very cool.
And so they're building self-efficacy before they get out into the field, which is important to retain teachers. If teachers don't believe that they are fulfilling a purpose and that they're doing it well, they're not going to stay in education. And that actually, between that self-efficacy and the autonomy, is what, more so than pay, keeps teachers in the field.
Right.
And so we want to build that in them before they get out there.
Sure. No, that sounds pretty incredible. Is kind of any next steps to that project, or what's the next chapter for that?
So we have moved to a year-long residency. And
Here in Arkansas, yeah.
Here in Arkansas, right. Part of the LEARNS Act. And it's exciting because our students can build rapport from day one, just like the mentor teacher. And so we want to look at what that process looks like in 3D from the beginning all the way to the end. And I can make some guesses as to what I'll see, but I think that journey is going to be really important to also see when they are first teaching lessons, because prior to that they're just observing and they're talking and maybe doing small groups, but to see them flourish the first time they teach a lesson in that first internship residency A experience to what that looks like when they take over the classroom full time. So that's our next step. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wish that I was a little bit more engaged with technology. You know, when I hear about faculty or students engaging with different things they're doing, and a friend of mine, Terry, she was very involved with some of that too. And I hear it, I'm like, that is so incredible. And then you later on you're like, oh, I wish I knew more about that. Mm-hmm. I think to kind of get to where we're wrapping up a little bit is, so thinking about whether it's a high school student or maybe a young student walking across campus, and maybe they're a lot like a young Heather, and they're starting in one major and exploring options, or maybe they're just not sure what's going on, like so many of us are. I transferred major a few times, won't talk about that too much. What kind of advice would you give somebody as far as if they're thinking about a career as an educator, or if they're just kind of exploring their options?
I would say to do what you love, because if you don't, you're going to be miserable for the next 50 years in your career. I did, when I switched to teaching, my father reminded me what the salary is of a teacher, and is that really what you want to do? But I laugh every day. I laugh with my students, at my students. Middle school is such a fun age too. I got to live in literature because I taught English, and I love literature, I love writing, and I didn't dread getting up every morning to go to work. And here at Tech, it's even more so. I would say don't sacrifice your passion. Figure out how to make that a career that you're going to love every day, because really that's the magic of living.
No, absolutely. I was funny you say something. The other day I was talking to, I forget who it was, but they were talking about commuting to work, and I've got like a 20, depending on traffic I guess, but 20-25 minute commute, and I'm like, I never feel bad coming to work. Like I never dread it. I never like I've had jobs in the past where you're like, I can't believe I'm going back to this. I don't have that sense, and there's something about tech, there's something about being in the education field in general, but maybe it's the mountains that are around here, the green, right? And I think you're so accurate thinking about where you're going to be comfortable, where you're going to fit, where you're going to belong, and you can make the rest work. If you're happy, a lot of things follow suit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Heather Stefanski, everyone. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.